Just taking a look now at the next Manchester United manager odds. Ruud van Nistelrooy up there, Michael Carrick, Kieran McKenna, Gareth Southgate still at 7-1, followed by Graham Potter, Ruben Amorim and Thomas Frank.
Rob will know more of what's going on than any of us, but I have to say, and no disrespect to any of them as managers and coaches, because Graham Potter, and I'm not saying I'm not a big fan, but certainly what he did at Brighton, I think was I think it's in the shadows now because of what happened at Chelsea, but we know the message. Ruben Amorim at Sporting has got a very good reputation, there is no doubt about that, but as a generalisation of a list, for a club that you could argue, along with Real Madrid, are one of the biggest in the world, commercially, historically, it's an appalling list. It really is, in terms of that job. In terms of other, if that was a mid-table Premier League team, and we put that list up, if that was a West Ham job, or something like that, I could go, I can buy that. Some decent candidates for that job there. But this is Manchester United we're talking about. And I think, I've said it all along, I think to me, if I had a crystal ball, I could see Van Nistelrooy being in there as an interim coach and then give themselves a bit of time to make a decision. If they decide to part ways with Erik Ten Hag, which I don't know if they are or not, but they got Brentford at the weekend. They're playing appallingly badly. There is no, before the international break, there was no sign whatsoever of him being able to figure it out. In fact, it was getting muddier going into the international break with players that had been signed in the summer, had been left out, and it was just a mess. So we wondered whether they would make a decision during this break. They haven't thus far, and I have no idea, as we sit here now, what kind of decisions that they're going to make.
What is the latest on this situation then, Rob?
That Erik Ten Hag remains under massive pressure. Obviously, there was a United board meeting in the first week of the international break. They discussed the first team performance, Erik Ten Hag's performance. They chose not to make a change. Obviously, United were stressing that it wasn't an emergency board meeting, it was pre-planned, and Erik Ten Hag was one of a number of topics that was discussed. But that doesn't remove the fact that he's still under massive pressure, and they've got 7 games now between the end of this international break and the start of the November break. And really, Erik Ten Hag needs a run of really, really good results because he's almost living day to day now. You know, if they were to lose that Brentford game, there would be speculation and reports in the immediate aftermath that he was about to get sacked. And then beyond that, you've got Fenerbahce. I'm sure Jose Mourinho would love nothing more than to stick the boot in even more and beat United, one of his former clubs. Really, Erik Ten Hag, to ease some of this pressure, needs a run of results. But as Craig has just said, that there's not really much evidence to suggest that they're capable of doing that. They haven't been consistent for the best part of 18 months. And there hasn't really been any evidence that they're capable of winning 5 or 6 on the bounce. So Erik Ten Hag will remain under pressure. What I would say is that today has probably been a good day for Ten Hag because Thomas Tuchel, one of the candidates to take over should he have been sacked, has taken another job. So the pool, the list you've just had up there, the list of candidates who could possibly take over at Man United is getting smaller by the day. Thomas Tuchel's taken a job with England. Southgate's ruled himself out until at least the summer. Ruud van Nistelrooy is top of that list to take over because he's in the building. He's already assistant coach. It would be quite an easy choice to remove Erik Ten Hag and put Van Nistelrooy in. But in terms of his CV and his experience as a manager, he's had one year at PSV Eindhoven in Holland. If United were starting from scratch to appoint a manager, Ruud van Nistelrooy would be nowhere near that conversation. It's possible that Erik Ten Hag doesn't get the results that he needs between these next international breaks that he's sacked in November, say. Ruud van Nistelrooy comes in until the end of the season, and then Ineos and Man United get to the summer and then can appoint Gareth Southgate. And he's someone that they've made no secret of the fact that they like him. They would have liked to speak to him in the summer when they were doing their end-of-season review, but it was all complicated by the fact that Southgate was in charge of England. I don't think they were expecting Southgate to say that he wanted to take a year off coaching and bide his time and wait for the right opportunity. So right now, you're stuck in what is this mess now? You've got a manager who isn't performing, the team aren't getting results, but where do you turn? There aren't really that many options to replace him if you decide that you do want to sack him, and the list you've just had up there proves that.
When you look at that run of games, under normal circumstances, you would look at that and go, we're going to get some points here. I mean, there's only, looking at what we put out there, there's only really Chelsea under normal circumstances where you'd go, they should win the rest. I mean, really, Brentford, Fenerbahce, West Ham, Leicester twice. I mean, that should be easy pickings for Manchester United in under normal circumstances. But they're so bad that you're looking at that and thinking, if he doesn't put a run together, he can't survive that.
OK, but then where do they turn when you've seen that list of what's available?
But it would have to be embarrassingly bad, not just bad, because they haven't gotten rid of him so far when they've been bad. So it would have to be just too big of an embarrassment to keep him. And then it's clearly Van Nistelrooy. It's not any of those guys that we had up earlier. Again, with all due respect to them, it can't be. It can't be.
It seems to me, in a sense, as well, that there is a problem with who's out there and who's available, and maybe that was an issue in the summer, not as big as it is now, but it maybe was a little issue for them. But is it a little sense of, well, we didn't sack him after the cup final, so we don't want to be seen to be, you know, making ourselves look bad by sacking him now, and try and give him a bit more time, see if we can turn that around, because, you know, most people thought City were going to beat them in the cup final and he was gone. The fact that City had one of the worst days of the season, and the fact that Coventry City in the semi-final, they squimmed through it, somehow saved them, and all of a sudden this was going to turn into some great juggernaut that was going to gather some speed, and Ten Hag was going to get it right. I don't think any of us, certainly sat here and watched United last season, said that he could turn that around. We all said, pretty much to a man, that 3 months into the season we'll be having this conversation about the United manager. And here we are. Now, I know we get paid to do this job, but there's big bucks in this business. Can these people that are running businesses not see it? And so I don't really see how... And Brentford have started the season well. They're sharp. They come out the trap. They're scoring goals. And I hope United have done their homework. They score goals in the first minute or two of almost every game they play. And so I really don't see, if this is an embarrassing result at the weekend again, how they can even let him go into the Fenerbahce game. I just don't see it. I think he's too deeply mired in the mud now that he can't get out. He can't get out. And they're also in it with him, because they've got all this money. Ineos have put the money in, and they've got money to back the club, but there's nobody out there. They've sat in their hands, and they've twisted and twiddled their thumbs, and every other manager that was probably decent enough for this job has gone out and taken another job. And I'm not buying Gareth Southgate a year down the line. He's a lovely guy, and he did a great job with England in terms of where they got him to. But at club level management is chalk and cheese. It's apples and oranges. He's got no track record. He was manager at Middlesbrough. It was a bit of a struggle. He sort of fell into the England job. That worked out great for him. Fair enough. But managing and turning around a club of this size on a day-to-day basis, I just don't see how they think he can turn that around. And I also don't think it would wash with the fans.
Manchester United have ended one role right now, though, and that is the ambassadorial role of Sir Alex Ferguson. It's something that Erik Cantona has not been too happy about, though, and he posted this on social media to talk about what he had to say, saying Sir Alex Ferguson should be able to do anything he wants at the club until the day he dies. Such a lack of respect. It's totally scandalous. Sir Alex Ferguson will be my boss forever, and I throw them all in a big bag of...
Something.
Yes, of something. That's the nice way to put it, Craig. Is this the feeling amongst the fans, Rob?
It's certainly the feeling of some of them. Alex Ferguson is the greatest manager that United have ever had, and some fans are viewing this as quite disrespectful, really. United are trying to badge it as, a mutual parting of ways, that Ferguson's turning 83 in December and that he's cutting back on his work commitments, but there is no escaping the fact that this has been driven by United, by Ineos, as part of their cost-cutting measures. That said, there are some United fans who have seen, there were 250 people at Man United who have lost their job through redundancy in the last sort of 3 and 6 months. And some United fans are saying, well, if United are cutting jobs throughout the club, then why should they be paying Sir Alex Ferguson £2 million a year for what is a ceremonial role? So it has split the fan base a little bit. I think there are some United fans who will see it as Ineos sort of stripping away a little bit of the soul of the club. Sir Alex Ferguson is imprinted in the very fabric of Man United. It's he really created this modern Man United, and Ineos have decided that they no longer need his services. Again, United are stressing that this has all been done with face-to-face discussions. That Sir Alex Ferguson is happy with his decision, that it's been mutual, and that Sir Alex Ferguson will be welcome at Old Trafford whenever he wants. But there will be United fans who look at this and think that is one step too far. That it's fair enough Ineos wanting to cut costs to save money, but you just don't go anywhere near Fergie. Fergie gets to do whatever he wants because of how successful he was as a club manager. So, certainly a split among the fan base, really, when that news came out today.
Manchester United still trying to get back there. Let's talk about them, Charlie. In the Mirror top there, you can see David McDonald's story, United axe Fergie. Sir Alex Ferguson's become the most high-profile victim of the brutal cost-cutting measures at Manchester United. In the Telegraph, though, Jim White even writes that Fergie time is over and Ratcliffe has made the right call. The gist of Jim White's piece, Charlie, is that in a time of austerity at United, where Christmas parties, etc., people are losing their jobs, this is the right call. But surely Manchester United wouldn't be making £600 million a year if it wasn't for Sir Alex Ferguson. They should pay him till his final day, shouldn't they?
No, I agree with Jim. And Eric Cantona has really gone ballistic at United. But I think, as you've just mentioned there, at a time where United are cost-cutting, a lot of people have lost their jobs in Manchester. And the fact that Fergie was still being paid over £2 million a year to be an ambassador, I actually think it's crazy. Of course he's going to be welcome there for the rest, for the rest of his life. That goes without saying. But I think £2 million was a lot of money, even though they're obviously eternally grateful for what he brought to that club. I do see why United have done that.
What do you think, Miguel? Would they be making anywhere near the kind of money they are now if it wasn't for Ferguson, what he did?
No, I mean, he is the modern club in that sense. He's a legacy. But, in cold terms, I'd say it's probably, it's the correct decision. There are other issues here, like I suppose the weight that a club like that feels when you have such a legendary figure around for so long. The one point I would make in tempering that, I suppose, it's as both of you said there, I suppose, it's the amount of money United actually make. So it is quite remarkable that they're in that situation. And I suppose that speaks to something bigger and maybe more kind of, it's almost a bigger debate, which is, I suppose, the economic outlook of the ownership on both sides. Where should there really be this sort of need for austerity at United?
Yeah, what do you think, Charlie? Do you see brighter days ahead for Manchester United once they've worked out how to balance the books? Is that an important first step?
Yeah, I do. Within a couple of years, I think the setup that they've got there now, and of course, I think they had to cut costs. I think with Dan Ashworth and the team they've got there on the sporting side, they will get it right. Short term, I don't think Erik ten Hag will be the man, but in 2 or 3 years' time, and particularly with the stadium to come, we assume as well, I think United will be in really good shape.
I remember Sir Alex Ferguson talking about being quite inspired and helped by Sir Matt Busby. I think you'd hear smell cigar smoke emanating from his office, Miguel. What do you think of Erik ten Hag's position, though? You've got about 30, 40 seconds. Do you feel that for ten Hag and future Manchester United manager, it helps maybe that Sir Alex isn't around?
I think maybe it's got to the point now where, certainly for Ten Hag's situation, that isn't so relevant. It is still a kind of not necessarily a shadow, but a weight over the club. And really at this point, though, Ten Hag's issues are injuries notwithstanding, recruitment issues notwithstanding, but they are of his own making. You can see it in tactics. And I have to say, I'm still slightly surprised he's going to be taking the job this weekend. But that does speak, I think, to the hierarchy's current outlook, which is the preference is to keep him unless it gets really, really serious. Although it doesn't feel like we're that far off that at the moment. Yeah, and alternatives getting fewer by the day, it seems. Thomas Tuchel going to England. Charlie and Miguel, thank you very much for your time tonight on Back Pages tonight. Hope to see you soon. Great chat.
Can we get Man United into it?
Well, of course we can, I'll tell you, and we will show you. But thoughts on Tuchel's appointment?
Well, if you look at the candidates that were available, he's probably one of the best out there. I mean, there was a little bit of talk in the media about the Manchester City manager, but I don't know how much was in that. I mean, obviously, if you could get him, or a Jurgen Klopp, or an Ancelotti, then that's what you're doing. But you're not doing that. So when you go down the list, he is the most experienced, probably the best out there. Bearing in mind Pochettino's taken the US men's national team job. I never ever felt that Lee Carsley was going to be able to sort of step in and handle that, particularly the way the English media can get onto you. You know, we saw that after the bad performance against, who was it again? Greece. When they played badly against Greece, and he made all these changes. And then you're looking at the Eddie Howes and one or two others. So in terms of what's out there, I mean, I don't think he's the greatest. As I say, Guardiola and Klopp for me, and Ancelotti, and there's maybe one or two others out there, really, really stand out. And then I think you're down to sort of Tuchel, and then below that maybe Pochettino. So I think it's as good as they can get, unless they go a different route. But you know, I think quite exciting for England. Apart from the fact that I'm already hearing and reading about this, he's not English. He's not English. I mean, we've already started already. You know, the back pages are picking up a little bit of it. Social media, where maybe we should just ignore. You know, already talking about, you know, we saw it with Lee Carsley. You know, he doesn't sing the national anthem, doesn't do this. We've kind of already gone, and he's not even announced yet. We're kind of already seen a little bit of that so far, which I don't agree with. And let's hope we don't go down that line. But I think, in general, a very, very good appointment.
To Craig's point, Rob, going back to the realistic options that were available to England, was Tuchel their first choice?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly Craig is right that of the candidates who were available, Tuchel is probably the best of that bunch. There was talk a little bit about Pep Guardiola. There was an informal approach made to Guardiola in the summer, but I don't think that the response that the FA received was particularly enthusiastic, and they've had to go in a different direction. There's a little bit of surprise in England about the speed at which this has been done. Even a few weeks ago, the noises around the FA were that they would prefer to appoint Lee Carsley, someone who's had success with the under-21 teams, as Gareth Southgate did before he stepped into the senior role. I think this week, though, this camp has been quite bruising for Lee Carsley on the field. You know, Craig's mentioned that defeat and the performance against Greece, but also in the media room as well. You know, he's given some very strange answers about whether he actually wanted this job at all. And then since that, the FA have moved on and looked at Thomas Tuchel. And as Craig has rightly said, of the candidates who were available, if you're looking for a guy to get you over the line to win a tournament, Tuchel is the best of that bunch. He's got the CV to prove that he can win trophies.
Think this is a good fit, Stevie?
Yeah. I think for a change, you've got to actually give the FA some credit. You know, clearly they were hoping that Carsley would be able to do the job. But clearly, after the Greece game, and I think after the Finland as well, I mean, they might have won the game, but there was a lot of problems in it for me. But they've acted quickly. You know, they've actually come to a quick decision, having given Carsley these couple of games and decided that he's absolutely not going to be the guy. And they've made a good choice from what's available. He's a good coach. He's got a great resume. You know, the problems that he's had in club management at the likes of Bayern have all been about things that he wanted that he couldn't get. Well, in this job, he's got every single thing he wants. He can pick what players he wants. That's certainly the ones that are available. He can ask for anything, and he'll get it. And so we're really going to see what Tuchel's made of in terms of coaching. His resume tells you he's a great coach. The problems he's had with all his clubs is down to him, supposedly, wanting this and wanting that and causing problems with certain people in high places. Well, he's not going to have any of those problems now. So if his resume is exactly what it is, then he should have no problem sorting this England team out.
He's quite combative, isn't he? And he's quite intense on the training field, we've heard. And I think getting away from that day-to-day involvement of having to deal with, you know, some unhappy players and
chill him
he
out.
was fighting those at Bayern. He certainly was fighting some big politics and some ludicrous decisions at Chelsea at the end. And so he steps away from that, and he's worked with a lot of these players. He's worked with a lot of these England players. I mean, not that it really makes a difference because, you know, managers coming in for wherever in the world have dossiers and on every player, and you're watching. It's a global game. You're watching it wherever.
But then Harry Kane, to your point, him and Harry Kane at Bayern last season. That was a very nice partnership if you were to look at it that way.
No, it was. But I've got news for you. Harry Kane's not going to be around forever. He's not exactly 25 anymore. But your point is right. He knows a lot of these senior players. He's very experienced. He's worked with big stars across Europe. He's worked with big egos. He's got his faults. Like every other manager, and this is a great opportunity for him. And I say it again, they've been down the look. England have it. Look, but people sitting watching this saying you're Scottish. What have Scotland won? Scotland don't have the players. They're not very good, right? Just don't have what it takes to be competitive. England do, and you can't be frowning about everything. And I read one today from a very senior. Reporter in England, columnist, saying everything should be English. The manager, the kit man, everything should be English, and it should be like so patriotic. And I'm like, oh, come on. Surely we've gone past that. It's about getting somebody to get the best out of some of these very, very good players. Some young players, some older players. There are some deficiencies in the team. If you look maybe at the keeper situation with Jordan Pickford, obviously the back line's been a bit of a talking point. How do we get all these, the balance right with these great attacking players that England had? We saw Lee Carsley throw them all in. That didn't work. So there's a lot to work with. And you have to, surely, as a media person and as a supporter, you have to embrace that if you're an England supporter and look past where you're from and look, so what can he do for us? What can he do that's better than Gareth Southgate and anybody before him? Just go that next step. And I don't think you can criticise that.
Let's ask the Englishman on the panel first how you feel about it, Rob, but also what you're hearing from this side of things about it all being so pro-English when it comes to a coach for the Three Lions.
I mean, it's certainly part of the debate. There are England fans who believe that the coach of the English national team should be English. They felt that when they appointed Fabio Capello and also Sven-Göran Eriksson, and those England fans probably aren't going to change their mind. I think above anything, though, England fans want to see their team win. So the FA have to pick the right man for the job, the man who can deliver that elusive trophy. And I'm sure in a perfect world, the FA would love to appoint an English coach, but the candidates just aren't there. If you look at the pool that they were picking from, if you're going for a purely English coach, the names that were mentioned were Eddie Howe and Graham Potter. Well, Eddie Howe is in a comfortable job at Newcastle. Graham Potter is out of work, just as Thomas Tuchel is. But if you're going to appoint Graham Potter over Thomas Tuchel, then you're appointing him simply because he's English, not because of anything to do with his CV and his ability to win trophies. Because if you're making a decision purely on your ability to win, Thomas Tuchel wins that hands down every single time. So the FA, I'm sure at the press conference tomorrow when they explain their decision to appoint Thomas Tuchel, will point to that. They laid out their criteria in the summer when they were looking for a replacement for Gareth Southgate. They said that they wanted someone with extensive knowledge of English football, of the Premier League, and a track record of winning at the highest level. Well, Thomas Tuchel ticks all those boxes. The one box that perhaps he doesn't tick for the FA is the fact that he's not English. Well, in the scheme of things, really, that doesn't really matter. And I promise you that no one will be talking about the nationality of the coach if England win the World Cup in 2026 in the US. That his nationality will only become an issue if he doesn't win and he starts to lose. That's when him being German will be thrown back in his face.
Of the Mirror then, indicative of how big a story it is, I suppose. But the Kaiser Chief, reference, of course, to being German, I suppose. How big a deal is this? Thomas Tuchel would have grown up rejoicing at England being knocked out of big tournaments. Is that going to be a problem?
It's a massive story, isn't it? Huge deal. And maybe it's written in the stars that England are going to finally win their first trophy since the World Cup in 1966 with a German in charge. Obviously, third overseas manager. It's been a pretty crazy week. 6 days ago, we were just speaking at a press conference ahead of the game, against Greece, thinking Lee Carsley, it was all there for him. And less than a week later, we're talking about Thomas Tuchel, a huge character. It's a fascinating appointment. I can understand why some people feel they'd like to see an Englishman in charge, but I totally understand why the FA have gone for him.
Well, in the Independent, Sir Miguel Delaney's written a piece in reaction to it. England's statement signing of Thomas Tuchel shows as much desperation as inspiration. It's a very good read, Miguel. Not biased because you're on tonight. But desperation, you say, stems from the fact that England don't have too many options, which is probably an indictment on a so-called big footballing nation.
Well, that's exactly it. And also maybe the sense that obviously England have gone so close under Southgate, but they are also the biggest country and the only World Cup winning country to go on a drought this long. It's actually unprecedented in football history. And it does just feel, especially given the FA have obviously rightfully made such a virtue of the overhaul of the country's football culture and identity over the last decade, everything that St George's Park represents, England DNA, all of that. But to suddenly go from that almost kind of long-term approach to just as they get to that final detail, to almost kind of depart from that and bring in a foreign... I suppose it's more in keeping with the culture of the Premier League, really, than what the FA have been over the past decade. And I think it's absolutely key to stress here. This has nothing to do with nationality, and I wouldn't think Tuchel being German is part of that. It's more just, I suppose, what it says about English football culture right now. And I suppose that maybe the paucity of coaches that would be considered, especially given that such a key to this whole cultural overhaul has been to create a pathway for coaches. And I suppose at the least think that's an interesting discussion to have, as well as what maybe international football is supposed to represent in that sense. Certainly for the major countries and massive populations that do have more resources than most.
Yep.
Man United move to terminate Sir Alex Ferguson contract slammed by Dwight Yorke. Sir Alex became the latest casualty of the United scathing cutbacks. He will now carry on in a ceremonial unpaid role. But fans and stars were shocked at the move. Manchester United legend Dwight Yorke has blasted the move to axe Sir Alex Ferguson's £2.16 million deal as the club global's ambassador. Sir Alex has become the latest casualty of the United scathing cutbacks, it was revealed on Tuesday. The former Red Devils boss had signed the deal after stepping down as manager in 2013, and will now carry on in a ceremonial unpaid role after an amicable face-to-face meeting. But fans and United stars alike slammed the brutal and shocking decision, questioning how adored Fergie could get the sack before under-fire boss Erik ten Hag. Yorke, part of the treble-winning side which made history in 1999, told the Mirror, "I am as surprised as everyone else. We are going through a change at the football club from top to bottom. Everyone is looking over their shoulder at the moment. It is not really a fitting way to treat someone who has done so much for the football club. His contribution is unprecedented. They have been so successful for such a long time. The only people who know what is going on are those people who have just come in. I am not sure if everyone will be in agreement with the changes, but this will raise a few eyebrows. If they can do that to someone like Sir Alex Ferguson, then I suppose everyone is on a tightrope." Reacting on Twitter, Eric Cantona said Sir Alex Ferguson should be able to do anything he wants at the club until the day he dies. Such a lack of respect. It's totally scandalous. Sir Alex Ferguson will be my boss forever. Rio Ferdinand added, if Sir Alex can be taken out, then no one is safe at Man United, anyone can get it now. Ineos sending a message to anyone at the club. Other stars from across the sport also condemned the move. Ex-Scotland legend Don Hutchison wrote, "Brutal. Just sell a bang average player and his wages would allow Sir Alex to stay on for years." Meanwhile, Tottenham Hotspur player turned pundit Jamie O'Hara said, "How Sir Alex been sacked before ten Hag? Absolute shambles of a club." Since acquiring his 28% share of the club, Ineos owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe has cut 250 jobs and slashed a series of perks in a bid to balance the books. Last month, United announced a $113 million net loss, despite their total revenue being up $13.35 million on the previous year to $661.755 million in the 12 months to June 2024. The club is known to be close to the Premier League's $115 million three-year loss limit, although it is committed to abiding by the rules. Every department and all levels were affected by the redundancies in July, with performance analysts, the club's kit man and members of the ground staff losing their jobs overnight. As well as the job cuts, predicted to save £45 million a year, Ratcliffe has withdrawn corporate credit cards and chauffeur-driven cars for executives, as well as free travel for employees to the FA Cup final in May. It is also understood that this year's staff Christmas party has been cancelled, amid fears it would be bad taste following so many job losses. Ferguson, United's most successful manager thanks to his 13 Premier League titles, 2 Champions Leagues, 5 FA Cups and 4 League Cups, will always be welcome at the club, according to insiders. Over the last 11 years, his duties have included representing United all over the world, match-day hospitality engagements with partners and sponsors at Old Trafford, and appearing on promotional videos. He has been a regular spectator at home and away games, only spending time away after a life-threatening brain hemorrhage in 2018 and following the death of his beloved wife, Lady Cathy, last October. He will remain a non-executive director, but his paid ambassadorial role will terminate at the end of the season. The decision was said to be amicable following a direct conversation between the Scot and Sir Jim Ratcliffe last week. Paid £2.16 million a year, it is believed Sir Alex was earning more than 5 members of the United first-team squad, including England midfielder Kobbie Mainoo, whose contract, signed last year, was worth a reputed $20,000 a week. Man United were approached for a comment by the Mirror.